Hello everyone, this is Srita Tulathar from Tu's Online Study, and today I'm going to give you my presentation on sustainable development. And here I'm going to give my presentation on traditional models of development, concept of sustainable development, Millennium Development Goals, and Sustainable Development Goals. Model of development. The sustainable development emerged as a great challenge to the traditional forms of development. Contrary to conventional development theories, it holds different assumptions, open or hidden, of the previous models, development, thinking, and practices that form the backbone of the sustainable development model. And here are some of the assumptions made by the traditional model of development, and they are development in a limited way, exploitation, misuse of natural resources solely for benefit of human beings. Level of consumption indicates level of human welfare. People's welfare is maintained by standard of living, that is, individual consumption and self-attainment. Emphasize consumption patterns of individuals' society, but ignores those aspects of development that threatens the natural resources upon which future development depends. Environmental deterioration is inevitable consequences of development. Ignores the fact that social stability progress requires the preservation of natural resources. Neglects the fact that there are limits to economic growth and prosperity because of limited carrying capacity of planet. Based upon the exploitation of natural resources, which ignores the fact that excess of exploitation causes underdevelopment in those countries by creating resource poverty. People were unaware of the fact that there are not enough natural resources to support development to be carried into future in its present forms. The previous development models were driven by wants of people rather than their actual needs, and hence this brings to the worst side of traditional model of uh, development. The concept of sustainable development emerged due to following reasons: waste of resources and conservation of energy, depletion of forest and protection of animal and plant species, atmospheric conditions, anti-pollution equipment on automobiles, switch from leaded to non-leaded fuel, rate of technology adoption, recycling and reusing needs. There were more new challenges ahead, that is, issues more in case of developing countries, and they are acute poverty and suffer, rapid population growth, inadequate sanitation and safe water, increased demand of energy and industry, growing demand of agricultural products. There were some events of 1970s and 1980s that brought into that an urge for application of sustainable development, and they are disaster due to explosion of Bhopal and Chernobyl atomic furnace, depletion of ozone layer, deforestation of Brazilian rainforest, and efforts of Greenpeace in environmental protection. Concept of sustainable development. Sustainability can be defined in these three terms, and they are environmental or ecological sustainability. At the environmental level, sustainability prevents nature from being used as an inexhaustible source of resources and ensures its protection and rational use. Aspects such as environmental conservation, investment in renewable energies, saving water, supporting sustainable mobility, and innovation in sustainable construction and architecture contribute to achieving this environmental sustainability on several fronts. Social, sus- social sustain. At social level, sustainability can foster the development of people, communities, and cultures to help achieve reasonable and fairly distributed quality of life, healthcare, and education across the globe. In each society, sustainable development should be compatible to justice, equity, non-violence, etc. Without considering these aspects, development processes are going to be short-lived. Economic sustainability. Sustainability focuses on equal economic growth, that generates wealth for all without harming environment. Investment and an equal distribution of the economic resources will strengthen the other pillars of sustainability for a complete development. Sustainable development therefore stresses the necessity to address the processing issues of inequality, poverty, hunger, and other forms of human catastrophe. During the 1970s, the environmental impacts of development processes were recognized by international community advocates of environment. The term sustainable development has been prominent in development discourse since the mid 1980s. It is the central concept of our age. Sustainable development has been defined in many ways, but the most frequently quoted definition is from Our Common Future, also known as the Brundtland Report. It defines sustainable development as sustainable development is a development that meets the need of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So, this report gave the warning of the negative environmental consequences of economic growth and globalization, which tried to find possible solutions to the problems caused by industrialization and population growth. This report argued that the concept provides a framework for the integration of environmental policies and development strategies. It urges about needs to balance environment and development to meet the needs of the present and the future in a sustainable manner. Sustainable development has become an imperative rather than choice due to realities of massive environmental degradation, failure of growth-centered development efforts, increasing hedonistic and materialistic pursuit of consumerism, wasteful model of industrial development, and threatening of biodiversity due to increasing human activities and interference to the nature and natural habitat. Thus, sustainable development can said to be a process of synergy in the economic, environmental, social, ethical, cultural, and administrative dimensions of development. The Brundtland Report linked the achievement of sustainable development at the global level with the number of major political and social changes such as elimination of poverty and exploitation, equal distribution of global resources, end of the current pattern of military expenditure, new methods of ensuring just population control, lifestyle changes, institutional changes including democratization. According to World Conservation Strategy, sustainable development is development that is likely to achieve lasting satisfaction of human needs and improvement of quality of human life. According to IUC and World Conservation Union, sustainable development is improving the quality of human life while living within the carrying capacity of supporting ecosystem. World Bank Environmental Department has formulated a definition of sustainability which includes two parts, and they are output guide. Waste emission should be within the assimilative capacity of local governments without degradation. Input guide. Harvesting rates of renewable resources should be within the natural generating capacity. Depletion of non-renewable resources should be equal to the rate at which renewable substitutes are developed. There are four critical dimensions of sustainable development, and they are economic dimensions. In poor countries, sustainable development means commitment of resources towards continued improvement of living standard. So, sustainable development means transferring resources from security budget to development expenditure. Human dimensions. It means significant progress towards stable populations. It also entails making full use of human resources by improving education and health services and by combating hunger or redirecting or reallocating resources to ensure that basic human needs are met first. Environmental dimension. So, sustainable development necessitates protecting the natural resources needed for food production and cooking fuels, soils to woodlots to fisheries, while expanding production to meet the needs of growing population. Technological dimension. It means to shift to technologies that are cleaner and more efficient as close to zero emission, which could minimize consumption of energy and other natural resources. It also means limiting the global rate of increase of greenhouse gases and eventually stabilizing the atmospheric concentration of these gases. Millennium Development Goals. In the year 2000, 189 countries agreed on the vision of new millennium at UN Millennium Summit held in September 2000. The Millennium Development Goals are 8 goals to be achieved by 2015 that respond to the world's main development challenges. The 8 Millennium Development Goals break down into 21 quantifiable targets that are measured by 60 indicators. The main objective of a Millennium Development Goal is to bring peace, security, and development to all people. Millennium Development Goals are benchmarks of development progress based on such fundamental values as freedom, equity, and human rights, and peace and security. The Millennium Development Goals give people the power to claim their fundamental human rights, such as the right to food, education, health, and shelter, and allow ordinary citizens to become an active advocates for development. 8 Millennium Development Goals are: eradicate extreme poverty and hunger, to achieve universal primary education, to promote gender equality and empower women, to reduce child mortality, to improve maternal health, to combat HIV/AIDS, malaria, and other diseases, to ensure environmental sustainability, and to develop a global partnership for development. Eradicate extreme poverty and hunger. Extreme poverty has declined significantly over the last 2 decades. In 1990, nearly half of the population in the developing world lived on less than $1.25 a day. That proportion dropped to 14% in 2015. Globally, the number of people living in extreme poverty has declined by more than half, falling from 1.9 billion in 1990 to 836 million in 2015. Most progress has occurred since 2000. Achieve universal primary education. The primary school net enrollment rate in the developing region has increased to 91% in 2015, up from 83% in 2000. The number of out-of-school children of primary school age worldwide has fallen by almost half to an estimated 57 million in 2015, down from 100 million in 2000. Sub-Saharan Africa has had the best record of improvement in primary education of any region since the Millennium Development Goals were established. The region achieved a 20 percentage point increase in the net enrollment rate from 2000 to 2015, compared to a gain of 8 percentage points between 1990 and 2000. The literacy rate among youth aged 15 to 24 has increased globally from 83% to 91% between 1990 and 2015. The gap between women and men has narrowed. Promote gender equality and empower women. Many more girls are now in school compared to 15 years ago. The developing regions as a whole have achieved the target to eliminate gender disparity in primary, secondary, and tertiary education. In Southern Asia, only 74 girls were enrolled in primary school for every 100 boys in 1990. Today, 103 girls are enrolled for every 100 boys. Women participation has significantly increased in employment, agricultural sector, and parliamentary representation. Reduce child mortality. Despite population growth in the developing regions, the global under 5 mortality rate has declined by one and a half, dropping from 90 to 43 deaths per 1,000 live births between 1990 and 2015. Measles vaccination helped prevent nearly 15.6 million deaths between 2000 and 2013. The number of globally reported measles cases declined by 67% for the same period. About 84% of the children worldwide received at least one dose of measles-containing vaccine in 2013. up from 73% in 2000. Improve maternal health. Since 1990, the maternal mortality ratio has declined by 45% worldwide, and most of the reduction has occurred since 2000. More than 71% of births were assisted by skilled health personnel globally in 2014, an increase from 59% in 1990. In Northern Africa, the proportion of pregnant women who received 4 or more antenatal visits increased from 50% to 89% between 1990 and 2014. Uses of contraceptive device significantly increased. Combat HIV/AIDS, malaria, and other diseases. New HIV infections fell by approximately 40% between 2000 and 2013, from an estimated 3.5 million cases to 2.1 million. By June 2014, 13.6 million people living with HIV were receiving antiretroviral therapy (ART) globally, an immense increase from just 800,000 in 2003. ART averted 7.6 million deaths from AIDS between 1995 and 2013. Over 6.2 million malaria deaths have been averted between 2000 and 2015, primarily of children under 5 years of age in sub-Saharan Africa. The global malaria incidence rate has fallen by an estimated 37% and the mortality rate by 58%. More than 900 million insecticide-treated mosquito nets were delivered to malaria endemic countries in sub-Saharan Africa between 2004 and 2014. Between 2000 and 2013, tuberculosis prevention, diagnosis, and treatment interventions saved many lives, greatly reducing tuberculosis mortality rate. Ensure environmental sustainability. Ozone depleting substances have been virtually eliminated since 1990, and the ozone layer is expected to recover by the middle of this century. Terrestrial and marine protected areas in many regions have increased substantially since 1990. In 2015, 91% of the global population is using an improved drinking water source compared to 76% in 1990. Over half of the global population, that is 58%, now enjoys this higher level of drinking water service. Worldwide, 2.1 billion people have gained access to improved sanitation. The proportion of people practicing open defecation has fallen almost by half since 1990. The proportion of urban population living in slums in the developing regions fell from approximately 39.4% in 2000 to 29.7% in 2014. Develop a global partnership for development. Official development assistance from developed countries increased by 66% in real terms between 2000 and 2014, reaching $135.2 billion. In 2014, Denmark, Luxembourg, Norway, Sweden, and the United Kingdom continued to exceed the United Nations official development assistance target of 0.7% of gross national income. The number of mobile cellular subscriptions has grown almost tenfold in the last 15 years. As of 2015, 95% of the world's population is covered by a mobile cellular signal. Internet penetration has grown from just over 6% of the world's population in 2000 to 43% in 2015, which significantly increased global network of content and applications. Sustainable Development Goals. The normative side of sustainable development envisions 4 basic pillars of good society, and they are economic prosperity, social inclusion and cohesion, environmental sustainability, and good governance of major social actors, including government and businesses. As much as progress that has been made after accomplishment of Millennium Development Goals, there were a lot more to be achieved. So, Sustainable Development Goals were formulated by UNO, which addressed sustainable development further needs for almost all the countries, that is to be met within 2030. In September 2015, there was an agreement on fulfilling 17 set of new goals, and these new goals were called Sustainable Development Goals. The Sustainable Development Goals should be is action oriented, concise, and easy to communicate, limited and aspirational, global in nature, and universally applicable to all countries, which takes different national realities, capacities, and levels of development in respecting national policies and priorities into account. Here are 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and they are no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well being for people, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace, justice, and strong institution, and partnership for the goals. No poverty. It worked with the slogan End Poverty in all its forms everywhere. Poverty is more than lack of income or resources. People live in poverty if they lack basic services such as healthcare, security, and education. They also experience hunger, social discrimination, and exclusion from decision making processes. Extreme poverty has been cut by more than half since 1990. Still, more than 1 in 5 people live on less than the target figure of 1.5 US dollar per day. That target may be inadequate for human subsistence. However, it may be necessary to raise the poverty line figure to as high as $5 per day. Zero hunger. This sustainable development goal worked with the slogan End Hunger, Achieve Food Security, and Improve Nutrition and Promote Sustainable Agriculture. This targets state Goal 2's targets state that by 2030 we should end hunger and end all forms of malnutrition. This would be accomplished by doubling agricultural productivity and incomes of small-scale food producers, especially women and indigenous people, ensuring sustainable food production systems and progressively improve land and soil quality. Agriculture is the single largest employer in the world, providing livelihoods for 40% of the global population. It is the largest source of income for poor rural households. Women make up about 43% of the agricultural labor force in developing countries and over 50% in parts of Asia and Africa. However, women own only 20% of the land. Good health and well-being for people. This sustainable development goal worked with the slogan ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all the ages. The subtitle of this sustainable development goal is to achieve universal health coverage at every stage of life with particular emphasis on primary health services, including reproductive health, to ensure that all people receive high quality health services without suffering financial hardships. For this, there should be promotion of policies to help individuals make healthy and sustainable decisions regarding diet, physical activity, and other individual or social dimensions of the health. This would help to reduce child and maternal mortality rate, raise life expectancy, and control many diseases at lower cost. Quality education. This goal worked with slogan ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Major progress has been made in access to education, specifically at the primary level for both boys and girls. Still, at least 22 million children will miss out on pre-primary education unless the rate of progress doubles in 43 countries. Access does not always mean quality of education or completion of primary school. 103 million youth worldwide still lack basic literacy skills, and more than 60% of those are women. This goal 4 is to ensure that by 2030, all girls and boys complete free, equitable, and quality primary and secondary education. Gender equality. This sustainable goal worked with the slogan Achieve Gender Equality and Empower All Women and Girls. According to the UN, gender equality is not only a fundamental human right but a necessary foundation for a peaceful, prosperous, and sustainable world, providing women and girls with equal access to education, healthcare, decent work, and representation in political and economic decision making processes will fuel sustainable economies and benefit societies and humanity at large. Though this goal number 5 is standalone goal, other SDGs can only be achieved if the needs of women receive the same attention as the needs of men. Issues unique to women and girls include traditional practices against all women and girls in the public and private spheres, such as female genital mutilation, child marriage, etc. Clean water and sanitation. This goal was carried out with slogan Ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. Worldwide, 6 out of 10 people lack safely managed sanitation services and 3 out of 10 lack safely managed water services. Safe drinking water and hygienic toilets protect people from diseases and enable societies to be more productive economically. Attending school and work without disruption is critical to successful education and successful employment. Therefore, toilets in schools and workplaces are specifically mentioned as a target to measure. Equitable sanitation is called for and calls for addressing the specific needs of women and girls and those in vulnerable situations, such as the elderly people or people with disabilities. Water resources are better preserved if open defecation is ended and sustainable sanitation systems are implemented. Affordable and clean energy. This goal works with slogan Ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. Targets for 2030 include access to affordable and reliable energy while increasing the share of renewable energy in the global energy mix. This would involve improving energy efficiency and enhancing international cooperation to facilitate more open access to clean energy technology and investment in clean energy infrastructure. Plans call for particular attention to infrastructure support or the least developed countries, small islands, and landlocked developing countries. Decent work and economic growth. This development goal worked with slogan promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. Attaining at least 7% gross domestic product annually in the least developed countries is the economic target. Achieving higher productivity will require diversity and upgraded technology along with innovation, entrepreneurship, and the growth of small and medium-sized enterprises. By 2020, the target is to reduce youth unemployment and operationalize a global strategy for youth employment. Implementing the Global Jobs Pact of the International Labour Organization is also mentioned. By 2030, the target is to establish policies for sustainable tourism that will create jobs, strengthening industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Manufacturing is a major source of employment. In 2016, the least developed countries had less manufacturing value added per capita. The manufacturing of high products contributes 80% to total manufacturing output in industrialized economy and barely 10% in the least developed countries. Mobile cellular signal coverage has improved a great deal. In previously unconnected areas of the globe, 85% of people live in covered areas. Planet-wide, 95% of the population is covered. Reduced inequalities. This goal worked with slogan Reduce Income Inequality Within and Among Countries. One target is to reduce the cost of exporting goods from least developed countries. Duty-free treatment has expanded. As of 2015, 65% of products coming from the least developed countries were duty-free as compared to 41% in 2005. Sustainable cities and communities. This goal worked with slogan Make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. The target for 2030 is to ensure safe access to safe and affordable housing. The indicator named to measure progress towards this target is the proportion of human population living in slums for informal settlements. Movement from rural to urban areas has accelerated as the population has grown and better housing alternatives are available. Responsible consumption and production. This goal worked with slogan Ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. Using eco-friendly production methods and reducing the amount of waste we generate are targets of this goal. By 2030, national recycling rates should increase as measured in tons of material recycled. Further, companies should adopt sustainable practices and publish sustainability reports. Climate action. This goal worked with slogan Take urgent action to combat climate change and its impact by regulating emissions and promoting developments in renewable energy. The aim is to curb greenhouse gas emissions from the energy industry, agriculture, the built environment, and land use change to ensure a peak of global carbon dioxide emissions in the coming years in order to head off the rapidly growing dangers of climate change to promote sustainable energy for all. For success of this goal, decarbonized or low carbon energy system while also ensuring that electricity and modern energy services are also available for all. Life below water. This goal works with slogan Conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. Oceans cover 71% of the Earth's surface. They are essential for making the planet livable. Rainwater, drinking water, and climate are all regulated by ocean temperatures and currents. Over 3 billion people depend on marine life for their livelihood. Oceans absorb 30% of all carbon dioxide produced by humans. There has been problems like increase in acidification due to industrial revolution, destruction of marine habitats, overexploitation of fish stock, and marine pollution due to plastics bags thrown into the oceans. So, improving the oceans contributes to poverty reduction as it gives low-income families a source of income and healthy food. Keeping beaches and ocean water clean is in less developed countries can attract tourism and reduce poverty by providing more employment. The target of this goal includes preventing and reducing marine pollution and acidification, protecting marine and coastal ecosystems, and regulating fishing. The targets also call for an increase in scientific knowledge of the oceans. Life on land. This goal works with slogan Protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainably manage forests, combat desertification, and halt and reverse land degradation and halt biodiversity loss. The goal articulates targets for preserving biodiversity of forest, desert, and mountain ecosystems as a percentage of total land mass. Achieving a land degradation neutral world can be reached by restoring degraded forest and land lost to drought and flood. This goal for more attention to preventing invasion of alien species and more protection of endangered wildlife. Peace, justice, and strong institutions. This goal works with the slogan promotes peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. Reducing violent sex crime, sex trafficking, forced labor, and child abuse are clear global goals. The international community values peace and justice and calls for stronger judicial systems that will enforce laws and work toward a more peaceful and just society. More women and girls than men and boys were victimized, yet the share of women and girls has slowly declined. In 2004, 84% of victims were females, and by 2014, that number has dropped to 71%. Sexual exploitation numbers have increased, but forced labor has increased. One target is to see the end to sex trafficking, forced labors, and all forms of violence against and torture of children. This, this goal also targets universal legal identity and birth registration, ensuring the right to a name and nationality, civil rights, recognition before the law, and access to justice and social awareness. Partnership for Goals. This goal works with slogan strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. Increasing international cooperation is seen as vital to achieving each of the 16 previous goals. Goal number 17 is included to assure that countries and organizations cooperate instead of compete. Developing multi-stakeholder partnership to share knowledge, expertise, technology, and financial support is seen as critical to overall success of Sustainable Development Goal. Public-private partnership that involve civil societies are specifically mentioned. So it was my pleasure for me to share my knowledge via Aduce Online Study. So do press like button, share button, and subscribe button for notification of more of such educational videos. Do not forget to press bell icon after you press subscribe button. Do leave your valuable comments in comment box for giving us ideas on improved video presentation of Aduce from Aduce Online Study. So, thank you.